Long before the concrete jungles of the modern world rose, the dense emerald forests of ancient Bharat held secrets that were never meant for mortal eyes. Deep within the Himalayan foothills, hidden behind a veil of eternal mist and jagged limestone, lay the fabled valley of Alakapuri. This was not a place of men, but a realm ruled by Kubera, the god of wealth, and guarded by his most formidable subjects, the Yakshas. Among these celestial guardians, none were as steadfast or as feared as Viraka, a Yaksha whose skin was the color of weathered bronze and whose eyes glowed like embers in the night. Viraka was not a god, nor was he a demon. He was a spirit of the earth, a protector of the roots, the stones, and the shimmering gold that slept beneath them. For centuries, Viraka had stood watch over the needy, the 9 mystical treasures of Kubera that possessed the power to sustain or destroy empires. His duty was simple, yet absolute: to ensure that the greed of humanity never breached the sacred boundaries of the hidden valley. Viraka lived in the silence of the high peaks, moving through the shadows of the deodar trees like a phantom made of wind and ancient dust. He watched as civilizations rose and fell in the plains below, their kings warring for mere scraps of silver, while the true wealth of the world remained under his feet. However, the balance of the ages began to tilt when rumors of Alakapuri reached the ears of a man named Jayantha, a scholar turned sorcerer. Jayantha was not like the common looters who wandered into the forest. He had spent decades deciphering forbidden scrolls and tracking the movements of the stars. He knew that the Yakshas were bound by ancient laws of hospitality and challenge, and he intended to use those laws to his advantage. Jayantha arrived at the mouth of the mist-choked valley during the night of the dark moon, carrying nothing but a staff of iron and a heart filled with ambition. As he stepped across the threshold where the air turned cold and sweet, Viraka manifested before him, rising from the earth itself. Mortal Viraka's voice resonated like the grinding of heavy stones. "You walk upon ground that does not welcome your kind." Jayantha did not flinch, for he had prepared his spirit for this encounter, shielding his mind with dark incantations. "I seek not your life, guardian," Jayantha replied, bowing low with a deceptive grace. "I seek the Padmanidhi, the treasure that can heal the drought-stricken lands of my people." Viraka narrowed his glowing eyes, sensing the rot of a lie beneath the scholar's silver tongue. "The treasures of Kubera are not for the desperate or the clever," the Yaksha declared, his grip tightening on his heavy mace. "They are mirrors," Viraka continued. "They only reflect the purity of the hand that touches them. And I see only shadows in yours." Jayantha laughed, a dry and hollow sound that echoed off the canyon walls. "Then test me, Yaksha," the sorcerer challenged, "for it is written that a guardian cannot refuse a seeker who offers a trial of spirit." Viraka knew the ancient pact. If a mortal could answer the riddles of the earth, the guardian was forced to grant passage. "Very well," Viraka whispered, and the forest around them seemed to lean in, listening to the high-stakes gamble. The first trial was the trial of sight. Jayantha had to identify the true value of a single grain of sand hidden among a pile of diamonds. Jayantha looked at the gems, but instead of choosing the brightest, he picked a dull gray pebble that sat at the very bottom. "The diamond is but a stone that caught the light," Jayantha said, "but this pebble holds the history of the mountain it fell from." Viraka nodded slowly, for the answer showed a wisdom that was rare among men, yet he knew wisdom could be a tool for evil. The second trial was the trial of weight. Jayantha had to balance a scale, using only his own shadow against a bag of gold. The sorcerer stood still, and through a dark spell, he infused his shadow with the weight of his sins and his heavy desires. The scale tipped, and the shadow proved heavier than the gold, a feat that caused Viraka's brow to furrow in concern.
"Oh."
"You carry a heavy soul, Jayantha," Viraka remarked, his voice echoing with a warning. Finally, the third trial began, the trial of the heart, where Jayantha had to describe the scent of the first rain without using words. Jayantha simply closed his eyes and began to hum a melody so mournful and yet so hopeful that the very flowers in the valley began to bloom out of season. Viraka was moved by the music, for it reminded him of the era when the world was young and gods walked among the trees. According to the law, Jayantha had earned his right to see the treasure, and Viraka stepped aside, though his heart was heavy with dread. They walked deeper into the valley, past waterfalls that flowed with liquid moonlight and caves lined with glowing moss. Eventually they reached the Great Vault, a natural cathedral of crystal where the 9 treasures sat upon pedestals of obsidian. There was the Shankaniti, the Conch of Plenty, and the Mahapima, the Great Lotus of Wealth. But Jayantha's eyes were fixed on the central prize, the Kalpavriksha, a small golden tree whose fruits were made of pure, magical energy. "Take what you came for," Varika said, watching the sorcerer closely. "But remember that wealth without purpose is a curse that never ends." As Jayantha reached out for the golden fruit, his composure finally broke, and a manic greed flared in his eyes. He didn't just want to save his people, he wanted to rule them, to become a god king whose power would never fade. The moment his fingers brushed the golden metal, the atmosphere in the vault changed from serene to suffocating. The crystals turned from white to a blood-red hue, and the ground began to tremble beneath their feet. "You have failed the final unwritten test," Varika bellowed, his form expanding until he loomed over the sorcerer like a mountain. "The treasures of the Yaksa are not stolen. They are earned through sacrifice, not through the mastery of riddles," the guardian roared. Jayantha tried to cast a spell of binding, but his magic withered in the presence of the true spirit of the earth. Varika grabbed the sorcerer by his robes, lifting him high into the air as the vault began to collapse. "You saw the history in the pebble, but you did not respect it," Varika said, his voice now a chorus of 1,000 spirits. "You weighed your shadow, but you did not realize it was dragging you to the abyss." Jayantha pleaded for mercy, promising to use the wealth for good, but the Yaksha knew that the human heart was a fickle thing. Instead of crushing the man, Varika cast him out of the valley, hurling him through the mist and back to the world of men. Jayantha landed at the edge of the forest, his staff broken, and his memory of the valley's location wiped clean. He was left with nothing but the haunting melody he had hummed, a song of a paradise he had seen and lost forever. Back in Alakapuri, Varika stood among the ruins of the vault, which began to knit itself back together through the power of his will. He realized that as the world grew louder and more desperate, his task would only become more difficult. The Yakshas were not just keepers of gold. They were the guardians of the world's wonder, the protectors of the hidden. Varika decided then that he would no longer wait for seekers to find him. He would walk the world in disguise, testing the hearts of men in the markets, the temples, and the crossroads. He became the old beggar who asked for a sip of water, the traveler who shared a story by the fire, the spirit in the rustle of the leaves. Through these tests, he sought a soul worthy enough to inherit the wisdom of the earth, someone who understood that true treasure cannot be owned. In a small village at the edge of the mountains, Varika encountered a young girl named Maya, who was collecting firewood. She found a shining golden coin in the dirt, a bait left by the Yaksha to see what she would do. Maya did not hide the coin or run to buy sweets. She took it to the village elder, worried that a traveler had lost their life savings. Varika watched from the shadows of a banyan tree, a small smile touching his ancient lips. He followed Maya for many years, watching her grow into a woman of immense kindness and quiet strength. When a great famine struck the land, Maya gave her own portions of food to the elders and the children, expecting nothing in return. Seeing her selfless heart, Varika knew that he had finally found what he was looking for. One evening, as Maya sat by a drying well, Varika appeared to her, not as a terrifying giant, but as a radiant being of light. "Maya," he said softly, "you have found the treasure that Jayantha could never grasp." He handed her a single seed, dark and unremarkable to the eye. "Plant this by the well," Varika instructed, "and it will provide for your people as long as your heart remains pure." Maya did as she was told, and by the next morning, a magnificent tree had grown, its roots tapping into an underground river that never ran dry. The tree bore fruits that were not made of gold, but were so nourishing that a single bite could sustain a person for days. The village prospered, not through hoarded wealth, but through the shared abundance of the earth. Varika returned to his vigil in the high peaks, satisfied that a piece of the needy was finally serving its true purpose. But he knew that Maya's story was an exception, and that the world was still full of Jayanthas. The legend of the Yaksa continues to this day, a whisper in the ears of those who seek more than they need. Many still wander the Himalayas, looking for the mist-shrouded entrance to Alakapuri, dreaming of walls made of emeralds. They do not realize that Varika is still watching, his eyes following every greedy step they take. He is the sudden chill in the air when a man thinks of a theft. He is the strange light in the distance that leads the unworthy in circles until they are lost. For the Yaksha is the personification of the earth's own boundaries, the know that nature speaks to human excess. To some, he is a monster. To others, he is a sacred protector. But to the earth, he is simply the gardener of the eternal. The treasures of Kubera remain safe, buried under layers of myth and the unwavering gaze of Varika. They represent the untapped potential of the soul, the richness that comes from harmony rather than conquest. As the stars turn and the eons pass, the Yaksha remains at his post. He waits for the day when humanity will finally value the shade of a tree more than the gold it could be sold for. Till then, the mist of Alakapuri will never lift for the arrogant. It will only part for those who walk with a light step and an open hand. Varaka's bronze skin may weather, but his spirit is as immortal as the mountains themselves. He is the guardian of the hidden, the silent witness to our deepest desires. So if you ever find yourself in the deep woods, and the wind begins to sound like a low, resonant voice, stop and listen. It might be Varaka, reminding you that the greatest treasure is already within you, waiting to be protected. Respect the earth, guard your heart, and perhaps the Yaksha will let you see the wonders of the hidden valley. For in the end, we are all just travelers passing through the realm of the spirits, and our only true wealth is the legacy of kindness we leave behind. Please don't forget to comment your thoughts on this legend, like the video if you enjoyed it, and share it with other mythology lovers. Subscribe to Storycraft Studio for more tales of gods, spirits, and heroes from around the world.